Next time on Philosophy Talk, the philosophy of John Rawls,
whose basic idea was justice as fairness.
Any inequalities must work to benefit the least well-off.
So we pay professional basketball players millions of dollars more than ordinary folks, but that's okay, because we all benefit from watching the games.
Can I doubt that's exactly what Rawls had in mind?
John Rawls, next time on Philosophy Talk.
Listen to Philosophy Talk today at noon on KSJE 90.9 FM, Farmington. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, here to meet your urgent and emergent medical needs, whether they are COVID-19 related or not. Medical emergencies happen when you least expect them, whether it's a stroke, heart attack, illness, or injury. San Juan Regional Medical Center's caregivers are here to provide care to you and your loved ones. Find out more online at sanjuanregional.com. Ten minutes past 8 o'clock. It's Tuesday morning, February the 23rd, 2021. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Michlin, and thanks for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM over the air here in San Juan County, New Mexico, 103.3 FM over the air in Durango, Colorado, and streaming everywhere on Earth from our website, KSJE.com. Welcome also to our viewers who are watching this visual radio program. The video is streaming live this morning to the KSJE YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and the KSJE Twitter account. We're glad that you're with us as well, however you got here this morning. Coming up in the next few moments, my guest this morning, Bloomfield School's Superintendent, Dr. Kim Mizell, will be joining me to talk about some of the things going on in the Bloomfield School District, so stay tuned for that. And then, of course, later on this hour at 8:50 a.m., I'll be checking in with Amber Francisco over at the Farmington Regional Animal Shelter. And for our visual radio viewers, you'll be seeing some of the pets that are available for adoption this week at the shelter. Next hour, of course, Mick Hess will take us roving with the arts. And, of course, today it is the fourth Tuesday of the month. Mick is featuring our Hope Not Hate series, featuring music that was recorded by imprisoned composers during World War II in Germany and Poland. And so you'll be hearing more of those rare recordings coming up this morning at 9:06 on KSJE. So stay tuned for that. This morning he is featuring the person you see pictured on the screen this morning, Marcel Tyberg, on Roving with the Arts. Don't forget, of course, in addition to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we invite you to connect with us on our Instagram page as well. And let's talk about the weather forecast outside. Sunshine today, 28 degrees currently outside our studios here at San Juan College. Feels like 24 because winds are gusting at about 5 miles per hour, so not too breezy just yet. We're expecting them to pick up this afternoon. Our forecast calls for a sunny and mild day today. Mostly sunny skies, 54 for a high in Farmington this afternoon. Clear and 24 overnight. Partly sunny tomorrow with a high of 52 on Wednesday. Partly cloudy, a bit cooler on Thursday with a high of 45, then back to near 50 for Friday, nearing 60 by Saturday, and mid-50s on Sunday before maybe a chance of a storm comes in Sunday night into Monday with a chance of rain or snow Monday and a high of 48 degrees. And of course, we always tell you that visual radio can take you places. Let's take you just outside our studios here at San Juan College. From a few moments ago, the construction is getting underway for the new student housing project here at San Juan College. As you know, the groundbreaking was held on Friday. We've moved our camera to give you a live look throughout the day at the student housing under construction. They are getting the ground ready to go, and you can check that out anytime. Just go to our website, KSJE.com, and there's also sanjuancollege.edu/housing, where you should be able to see some of the movement of the construction crews on that site. So exciting times here in San Juan County, and let me turn to my guest who is joining me this morning from her office in Bloomfield at the Bloomfield School District. Superintendent Dr. Kim Mizell is joining me this morning. Dr. Mizell, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you and have you with us, and thank you very much for joining me this morning. I wanted to kind of check in with you to see how things were going. Your students returned, some of them returned face-to-face in Bloomfield schools just last week, correct?
Yes, our elementaries have been in hybrid since the beginning, but our secondary started last week.
And that's the first time in almost a year, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, we're coming up on a year of being in remote learning, so we were kind of surprised that not that many returned. They decided to stay remote, and
Interesting.
so it may pick up as we move forward. But it was like at the junior high, I think we had 90 kids for that 50% mark. So it's half of the students attend Monday and Tuesday, and the other half attend Thursday and Friday. And so it's a small group. And at the high school, I think it was maybe 150 out of we were anticipating 350. So
Gotcha.
I think they're taking advantage of the remote learning. And, some of our elementaries right now are, we had to close them due to cases. And so they're reopening again. So parents may have decided to keep them at home for daycare purposes with their
Right.
siblings. But also, I'm hopeful that our remote learning system has been beneficial for the kids, and it's working for those that decided to stay home. So
Right.
that's okay.
And for the students who returned face to face after almost 12 months, what were their reactions? I would hope that they were positive and they were happy to be back, at least to see their teachers, and teachers happy to see them.
I think those kids, they must need that. So I went around the school and kind of checked in on them. They were kind of shy, they weren't.
Sure.
I just told them I was happy to see them, but you know how teenagers are. They're not going to really disclose too much right now. So
Well, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of hugging and other stuff that would go on maybe on a return to school type of situation, right? Like you might see in the fall when they would normally go back to school, right?
Yeah.
So that's understandable.
I think,
and there are some changes that you've made at the schools, right? There's certainly some COVID safe practices, and you mentioned 50%, and I'm sure there's plexiglass and all kinds of things that are different now in the classrooms.
Yeah, Bloomfield went with a cleaning regiment rather than doing the plexiglass dividers, and we have them 6 feet apart, and we wipe down every class period when they transition, and we clean high contact areas regularly before and after transitions, just to make sure that those high traffic areas are sanitized. So we have a pretty good regiment that we're implementing and trying to keep kids safe and everybody safe. So,
right. But so far, so good from what you're telling us this morning, right?
Yes.
That's great. And the other thing that's changed a little bit, too, is sports. We were talking before we came on the air this morning that students in your district and others, I would assume, are being able to do some kind of contact practicing, at least on the athletic fields?
Yes, we received the green light yesterday. So our athletic directors ran down to tell the kids that they can start practicing like a regular practice. And I know they're excited. My daughter plays volleyball, and she came home and she was real excited that she could play and practice game-like scenarios with her other teammates. So I think that it's a positive going in the right direction with athletics, and I know a lot of kids need that right now. I feel bad for all of them. I feel bad for the families and the kids.
Sure.
I was talking to someone. I said, if anything, our kids know what disappointment means.
I'm afraid that's true. They've learned that lesson this year. That's right.
Yeah, but they've also learned some resilience and other skills as well. So
that's very true, and that is a very good lesson to learn as well, because life is full of these types of situations, unfortunately, and so it's some good life lessons to be learning. But I get the disappointment, and I get the anxiousness of wanting to get back out and be active for sure. And so the return to contact practice means perhaps the return for the sports schedules, right? Still this spring.
Right. I just got the volleyball schedule, and our first game's March 6th. So we're moving forward.
Okay. That's good news. And the other thing I wanted to ask you a bit about too, Dr. Mizell, is how your students are doing, because you've got some of them coming back to face-to-face classes, and I know you spend a lot of time, your staff spends a lot of time looking at how they're doing grade-wise and assessment-wise, and what have you found so far this school year, which has certainly not been a normal school year by any sense of the imagination?
Well, Scott, that's good news in Bloomfield right now. We just had our board meeting and we did a comparison to last year's data, just to see if they're sustaining or maintaining, or is there a lot of learning loss. And in a few grade levels, there were declines. And honestly, I think it's in the K through 2 section because we don't have devices for those students. However, the 3rd through 12th grade, we have kids maintaining some of them are making growth. And so it's very positive. So there's not as much loss as we were anticipating. And I give credit to the teachers and the instruction that's happening remotely. Our district went with we developed and designed our own curriculum remote learning system that is consistent throughout the district. So I think those numbers are pretty consistent as far as the results.
Right.
And so we were really pleased with that. And I'm proud of all the teachers and the administrators. They've forged ahead and kept moving forward with the strategies and the professional learning communities that we utilize to drive instruction. And it showed up in our review of the data. And so it's good news. And I think we're definitely on the right track with what we've done. And there's a lot to celebrate, actually.
Very good. And that is something to celebrate, I think, too. And as you mentioned, so you were comparing data from this point, I guess, last year. So that would be pre-shutdown and a somewhat more normal year to conditions than this year.
Yes.
And that's what you found. And I get that that's worthy of celebrating, and we do. Are you concerned, though, that it doesn't look at the numbers? Obviously are smaller this year than they were last year with enrollment, right? And there are some students that may have dropped off your radar, and does that concern you at all, that maybe they're not getting the opportunity to be in class or even remote learning at this point?
Yeah, our district has done a tremendous amount of outreach. Teachers, contact with, like our secondary, they get taught every day, have contact with their teacher every day for at least 4 days a week. On Wednesday, they just do a check-in because that's a cleaning day and nobody's in the schools on those days. But they are having meetings and doing things virtually, obviously. But anyway, I think that it's real positive, and I think our attendance has had a little bit of our enrollment has had a hit. It's about, right now, sitting at about 250 students. Out of those 250, we've figured out where they've all gone. They've had to move. Their parents had to go where there's jobs. They decided to go ahead and just do homeschooling instead of doing our remote learning system. But there's about 60 of them that we're in contact with Engage New Mexico, and that's an outreach program at the state level that utilizes CYFD information, all the sources of information that we have on children and students to do outreach with them. And I know that they've been able to kind of contact and re-engage about 20 of those 60. And so not only we're working through the police department, the Navajo Nation Police, and the San Juan County Sheriff's Office to we send letters, we try to get them engaged again, and hopefully all those kids will come back next year when we're in a traditional setting. So yeah, that's always a concern, especially in every district in the state is at the same point. All of us have lost students and we're worried about our enrollment, but hopefully when things get better, they'll come back. So
Sure.
We'll try to stay positive.
Of course. But I know that you really do try to track every student, and it's important that you do that to find out where they went. And so when you can determine that they've moved out of the district or whatever the case may be, that at least tells you what has happened to that student, to that family.
Yeah, we have to really keep track of everything for graduation rates. We have to make sure we stay on top of that.
Sure. Understandable. And Dr. Mizell, is there anything that the district is looking at maybe over the summer to maybe help if there is a student who maybe is a little behind compared to their peers, to maybe help them catch up and be ready for fall if we are all hoping that folks can come back face to face and school looks a little more normal than it has this last year, but maybe fall 2021 will be a little bit better. But is there maybe a plan to help these students catch up over the summer this year?
Yes, our district is participating in the K-6 plus. So our kindergarten through sixth grade district-wide will have an additional 15 days of school in the month of June to do, hopefully, if it's in face-to-face, they'll get a lot more time, a lot more instruction during that time. If it's not, we'll still continue with what we're doing in a hybrid setting. But yes, we are providing that opportunity. Hopefully, we'll utilize that data that we take with our interim assessments and see where the students are struggling, and we're going to reteach through that period some of the content that we need to revisit with those students. So we'll be very strategic and focused on what we're doing for that 15 days.
Extra time. Very good. And let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Santa Fe these days. Of course, it's the 60-day legislative session, and I know you're watching carefully, as every other superintendent is, of some of the bills that are moving through. And as we were talking before we came on the air this morning, a budget just passed from committee and is moving its way through. But what are some of the things that you're hearing from Santa Fe? Because obviously there's some concerns that could impact your budget pretty severely, depending on what gets passed, what doesn't get passed.
Yes, I was just reading it actually. So what's headed to the floor is, it looks like a combination of the Legislative Finance Committee and the Legislative Education Study Committee. However, I don't see in this document a hold harmless component, which is very concerning for all of us who have lost enrollment. That means that jobs may be a little bit of a challenge or a concern for all of us, depending on if they don't have some mechanism for us to sustain our staffing. And so that's the concern. Pardon me for interrupting, but just that's part of the finance or the funding formula for school districts. It's based on enrollment, and so this year, because so many of your students have maybe dropped out of the district but may come back next year, the concern, if there's no hold harmless, they would use this year's enrollment numbers, and that would impact your funding from the state. Is that the idea? Exactly. The equalization formula that they utilize to determine the funding for school districts. And if they don't have a clause in this bill, and I haven't seen it yet, so I was speed reading it, to see, where did it land? Because a lot of times, we start hearing things like the LFC wants to trust the equalization formula. Well, that won't really work for all of us, because if those kids return, we're not going to have teachers for them. And so, because we're going to have to actually do a reduction in force. So anyway, let's hopefully that things happen and get amended and revised as it moves through the process. We're having a meeting today at 9, the Superintendent's Association, and maybe I'll have more information on that after that meeting.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just, we're at the mercy of the legislative session, which, it's a long process, 60 days, and waiting to find out what you need to do with your school district financially is stressful. Right.
Well, and again, if one budget passes that doesn't have the hold harmless in it, you've got one set of numbers. If a budget passes that does have it, you're working with another set of numbers, I suppose. And no hold harmless would mean how much for Bloomfield schools? That's significant, correct?
It's about $1.5 million.
And that would hit your general fund, I guess, or?
Yes.
And that's where you're talking about having to maybe have less teachers on staff and bigger classes and that type of thing, I suppose, if that's the case.
Yes, and I think every district in San Juan County is in the same boat. I think last conversation I had with Dr. Schmidt, I think his was at 540 students down, and I'm not sure what the number was, but somehow 8 million sticks in my head. So don't.
That's all right. Well,
one, but we're all worried about it, and
of course.
we're watching things closely. We've been in committee fighting against that. The Legislative Education Study Committee had a kind of a stopgap with loss of funds. So what they put in their proposal was that we would be able to apply for the difference in funding and get it to support and hold us harmless, whereas the LFC did not have that. And so hopefully the two will get married and we'll have something that will come out of this that's good for everybody. So yeah, we're waiting on pins and needles with this one.
Understood. Well, sure. And just as a programming note, everyone, Dr. Schmidt will be here tomorrow, so I'm sure he'll be able to tell us just what the impact is to Farmington schools and what's been going on. And we may have some clarity on which budget bill got passed, and it's moving forward, right?
Right.
So we'll see what happens. And Dr. Mizell, the other thing I wanted to ask you about this morning is your students who are still vying for a chance to win one of the cars you'll be giving away at the end of the school year. In the past, you've done that for perfect attendance, but of course it's a different year this year, and so now it's a GPA type of threshold for students to be eligible. And so, how are things looking so far for your high school students?
Well, I think it's kind of working in a different way. Actually, last year our graduation rate went up, so we're on an upward trend. And so this little incentive, I'd like to think that those kids that maybe chose not to come to school decided to come to school last year for the perfect attendance award. This year, we changed it to where it was a performance type based reward and instead of attendance because of the situation with COVID-19. And so any child that has a GPA 3.5 or above is eligible for the 2 cars that we'll be giving away. And so that number is about 42% of our high school, which is really a good number, and that equates to about 312 students that are in the running for the 2 cars.
Terrific. Well, and you mentioned that word incentive, and I guess it really is an incentive for many of your students, right, who you want a chance to win one of these cars, and just like it's been an incentive for them to keep coming to school when maybe the temptation was maybe not to show up that day for whatever reason. So it's been working well, and apparently the numbers prove that out.
Right. So it's always a fun day when we give those cars out and celebrate with them. So we'll hopefully they maintain over the spring and don't get spring fever.
That's true. That's right. Keep it up, everybody. But that's very true. And again, a shout out to the businesses who help make that possible. I know Zymes is one.
Yeah, we have a lot of our local businesses in the area. DJ's Pizza, Roadside, like Dairy Queen always contributes to us, and some of the oil and gas industry people put in an ad. They put advertisements in our magazine, so that helps with raising the funds for those car giveaways. And yes, we're very appreciative of our community and our local businesses for supporting us in that.
Very good. Well, and just so the audience knows that it's not district funds necessarily that go to pay for these cars and things like that. This is a separate endeavor that you've done with the district magazine and revenue from that helps to defray the costs of these vehicles, right?
Yes, we publish a magazine every year. So here's this year's.
Oh, there it is.
That goes out, and in here are ads from companies
who are supporting what you're doing.
Right, we sell those ads.
There you go. Very good. Well, Dr. Mizell, I always appreciate your time with us every month, and thank you very much. Is there any other final thoughts before I let you get ready for your next meeting? Because that's your life these days, I imagine, meeting to meeting to meeting.
Yeah, I mean, every day it's consistent Zoom calls throughout the day and meeting with people. I much more prefer the face-to-face type conversations, but I'm getting used to this. And we're moving forward and looking into next year, actually, and starting to plan for next year at this point with what we will be doing. So I'm definitely wanting to move on from last year.
Understood. So. It'll certainly be one for the history books, and I know folks will be studying it for a long time. But it sounds like things are moving in the right direction, as you've mentioned, with the return of contact practice or sports, and maybe sports schedules coming back online, and your students coming back face to face after almost 12 months. These are all positive things.
Right. And so I feel positive. I hope everybody else does. We were able to get as many employees that wanted the vaccine vaccinated a couple of weeks ago. We partnered with Care Drug, another local business, and they're a great partner. And so they were able to get the vaccines for our teachers, and we all have to go back on March 3rd to get our second shot. So I hope I don't get the side effects that everybody's been saying. But anyway, we're working hard to make sure everybody's safe and making the right choices, for our community.
Well, it's great that the vaccines have been made available to all your staff who wants to take advantage of that. So I don't think we can say that same thing in other states. So it's great that that's happening here in Bloomfield and in New Mexico. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that was a concentrated effort on my part with Care Drug. I went and said, hey, are you going to get any vaccines for everybody? I need about 465. And so she was able to get quite a few, and only 160 made the choice, but a lot of them had already gotten it through DOH. So, right. And then the ones that are conscientious objectors, they're going to do what they want to do. So,
sure.
We're trying, and I feel better about everybody back in school and not as stressed out with concerns for our teachers and the kids and everybody involved.
Very good. Well, that's true. And I imagine the parents can feel better about sending their kids back to face-to-face classes if they choose to do that too. So that's right. Great news. Well, Dr. Mizell, again, thank you so much for your time this morning. I always appreciate it. And we'll catch up with you again next month.
All right. Thank you, Scott. You have a good day.
All right. You too. Thank you. That is Dr. Kim Mizell, Superintendent of the Bloomfield School District, my guest this morning here on KSJE. Back with more in just a moment, everyone. The time right now is coming up on 8:38.